Hey guys, it's Britt, and today I wanted to do a little bit of an early morning discussion video, just while I sit here and drink my coffee. This was inspired by Steve Donahue and Indie Insomniac, where I will link both their channels up here as well as in the description below. But last night, I I I tweeted out, if we sent Steve Donahue to George R.R. Martin's house and had him loom over George and say, writer's block doesn't exist, we would have the winds of winter by now, and I meant it as a lighthearted jest, but as always, it inspired a fantastic conversation between me, mostly Devin over at Indie Insomniac, and Steve Donahue. And before I really get into this, I want to say that I have the utmost respect for George and Steve and Devin. Devin always challenges me on my ideas, and I think that's perfectly healthy, and it's one of the reasons why Devin and I have become such wonderful, wonderful friends. But anyway, uh, it has been almost, 6 years since A Dance with Dragons has come out, and there is no signs of winter coming in the near future. And I think that George has used the show catching up to him as an excuse to not write. And while I deeply, deeply sympathize with the man, he never anticipated the show catching up to his books. He had to know that somewhere in the back of his mind that this was a very, very, very real possibility that would happen. And last week I also said on Twitter, leave George alone. He wants to give the readers the best possible book that he can write. But after talking a little bit with Steve and watching Steve's video, there is a distinct difference between alleged having difficulty writing characters not doing what he feels they need to do, and George just not writing. And I think that's what has happened here. Sadly, and I love George, I love this world, I have respect for George. I would not own multiple copies of his series if I did not respect this man and his work. But I believe that he has just lost the motivation to finish. Dev brings up a great point that he's been in this world for so long, and there are so many characters, and not to say that George owes us anything, because George absolutely doesn't owe us anything. To use the show catching up to his story as an excuse is kind of ridiculous, because while Dan and Dave have promised that the end result will be the same as George has planned for the books, the way in which we will probably get to that ending is going to be dramatically different, because there's so many things that the show does differently, that the books do differently for various reasons that I won't go into. So I really hope that George does get this novel out soon, and that he just hasn't given up, because that's kind of what it sounds like. He works tirelessly with wildcards, and if you follow his blog, you know that. And I think that George is from what we see of George, from George's public persona, George seems like a wonderful, wonderful man. And I've never met him. I've never sat down and had a conversation with him. But I think that Steve said on Twitter that when he was writing A Game of Thrones, that George would slap today's George, 2017 George, who's just not doing anything. And it's sad, because this is every author's dream, to basically become a success overnight. And because of HBO, this series has always sold reasonably well, but it only really took off when HBO picked it up. And you can say what you want about HBO. I have mixed feelings about the show. There are things that I love, and there are things that I hate about it. But you can't compare them, because they're two completely different mediums. And I feel for George, because a lot of people, including myself, speculate a ton about this show. But the same can be said for a lot of authors. There's always going to be speculations, and sometimes people are going to guess your ending. And if you try to please everyone, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you know that's impossible. My buddy Talking Thrones said it great yesterday. The only way that you can please everybody is to delete your channel, because then it won't exist. And I don't want George to do that, but it's also really sad to see a writer that inspires me to essentially give up on this thing that he once held so close to him. Yeah. Once again, no disrespect to any of the parties involved here, but that's my 2 cents here. And of course, if you disagree with me, just yell at me in the comments below, and we'll have a great discussion. Devin said on Twitter that he wanted to respectfully back out of this conversation, and I completely and 100% respect that, bro. So, until next time, guys, I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.